Welcome to Lair, the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, underrated guitar players. This topic was suggested to me from a friend and subscriber, Sam. I thought it was a great idea. These are guitar players who, yes, us knowledgeable hard rock and heavy metal fans, which all of my viewers are, and us guitar players and musicians, we know who they are, we respect them. But often when you're seeing websites listing the greatest players of all time, or a magazine listing the greatest players of the 70s, these players will have their names low on the list. It should be higher, or maybe they're not even on the list at all. Now, I'm going to be making a special Spotify podcast. I'll leave a link to it below in the description, where I will be talking more on these players and playing a song from each one of them. So check that out if you're interested. All right, my first pick is Alex Lifeson from Rush. I think Alex sometimes gets overshadowed a little bit from Geddy Lee, because Geddy's a great bass player. He's a singer and the keyboard player. Neil Peart, one of the greatest drummers of all time. And sometimes Alex he's a little bit in their shadow, which I think is a shame, because he's an amazing player, super melodic, a lot of really catchy lines. Think of that little thing at the beginning of Spirit of the Radio. That guitar solo he plays at the beginning of La Villa Strangiato. Just great stuff. He's a fantastic player, and he's underrated in my opinion. Buck Dharma from Blue Oyster Cult. I'm not sure why Buck doesn't appear higher on people's list. He's just a great, great player, and he does so many things well. He can play the heavy, Sabbathy stuff like Cities on Flame and Godzilla, yet he can also play more melodic stuff. Then came The Last Days of May, things like that. He's a very versatile player, very melodic. He's very interesting the way he plays his chords and sort of constructs a lot of his stuff. Underrated in my opinion. All right, here's one from the metal world. Wolf Hoffman from Accept. He's got that classical feel and tone to his playing that I love. Great sound, always melodic. Reminds me a little bit of Michael Schenker in that respect. His solos are always add something to the songs. He's just a great player that when the great metal players are mentioned, he's never high enough on the lists for me. Leslie West, Mountain. Sadly, Leslie passed away not that long ago. When people talk about the late 60s and early 70s, you don't hear Leslie's name come up enough. You always hear Page and Beck and Clapton and Hendrix. Leslie had an amazing tone. He had a great feel. He was a super melodic player, great bluesy player, and I think he deserves way more recognition. A lot of guitar players do cite him as an influence. For instance, Randy Rhoads always cited Leslie West as a big influence. All right. John Sykes. He played with Tigers of Pain, Tang. He was on the Thunder and Lightning Thin Lizzy studio album. He was on Slide It In and the self-titled album. A lot of people don't even realize he played on this record because he wasn't in any of the videos. He played with Blue Murder. Great player, tons of technique, but a great feel and a great sound. Underrated in my opinion. All right, this is an underground American steel band. I did a video on them, Warlord, and their guitar player William J. Tasamis. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. He sadly passed away not that long ago. If there was anyone who should have followed Randy Rhoads and Ozzy's band, it should have been William. He had that kind of Randy sound and feel to his playing, the classical thing, the melodicism, the tone, the feel, just fantastic. This is a great album. I love this record. I wish they had put out more albums. Sadly, this is, they put out just a little bit of material. Great, great, underrated, unknown guitar player. Again, check out the podcast to hear some of his playing. Fantastic, especially if you're a fan of Randy Rhoads. All right, from a band that I really love, Candlemass, their lead guitar player, Lars Johansson. Lars is an amazing player that is like a combination of Willie Roth and Michael Schenker. Great melodicism, tons of technique, but this mixture of like blues and a little bit of a classical thing. Always interesting solos, never sounds like he's just playing anything for the sake of playing it. Absolutely fantastic player. I love Lars's playing. All right, this one, you know, in the guitar world, everybody knows who he is and he's very well respected. But I feel outside of the knowledgeable rock and metal fans and, you know, guitar players, that not a lot of people know Willie Roth. And I think it's because those early Scorpions records, they never had any big hits off those records. And when he went solo, he kind of did this like Hendrix-like type thing for a little bit. Then he did like the orchestral stuff. He kind of did all kinds of different stuff. So he never really had a big breakout thing to sort of get him known to the general public. But I mean, you've heard me talk about Uli on this channel. I love his playing. He's a very influential player on people like Ritchie Blackmore and a lot of the 80s shredders. That neoclassical thing, one of the founders of that, along with Ritchie Blackmore. Love Willie Roth. In my opinion, he's underrated. All right, last one I have here is Chris Oliva from Savatage. I love Chris's playing. He should be at the top of people's lists when they're talking about the great 80s metal guitar players. He's that combination of Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen that I just love. Great tone, great riffing. His solos are just fantastic. Tons of technique, but always a sense of melodicism to what he did. Great, great player. Very underrated in my opinion, and sadly he has passed away way too young. All right, there you go. There's my picks for underrated guitar players. These are just, in my opinion, these guys are underrated. They should be, you know, given more attention, given more accolades. All right, let me know in the comments down below some guitar players that you feel are underrated. Often when I make lists like this, people say, why didn't you mention this or this album? And a lot of times just because I just forgot. I think about these things for a little while, then I put out the video and I go, oh man, I forgot that player, I forgot that song or that album. So that's why I like it when you guys leave some comments down below. Let me know about some guitar players, hard rock, heavy metal guitar players that you feel are underrated. Check out the podcast linked below to hear some of their playing. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.